like my clinics, when I do clinics, I don't know what Angie does personally, but actually hand placement is one of the biggest things that I teach. So if I do a 2.5 day clinic, about a day and a half is on hand placement, because hand placement to me, I try to teach what you can control. You can control in a barrel horse what you can replicate, and hand placement and what you do with your hands is just like the steering wheel in a car. So everything that you get, every response that you get from a horse comes from what you do with your hands. And I ride more with my hands than my feet, and so that's why I really focus a lot on hand placement, because I'm a firm believer that your feet are to kick and for balance. So if a person tries to really ride a lot with their feet, they get in trouble because you kick and you balance with them. That's the natural thing that happens when you run barrels. So if you try to do a lot of other things with your feet, if you're trying to cue off of your feet, then you get a lot of confusement, you get a lot of misinterpretation between you and the horse. So hands is very much what you can control. It's what you have direct contact to their mouth. That's what you can control. So I'm a firm believer that many of the people like us are really good with our hands. You know, when you talk about a professional being good, and one of the best compliments you can get is you have really good hands. You have a really good feel with your hands. A lot of times feel is what they talk about that professionals have that a lot of amateur hobbyist barrel racers don't have. And that comes from your hands. You have to be able to feel what's happening between you and the horse. And so actually this is a really fabulous topic. So I try to, no matter what horse I ride, no matter, I don't ever try to change their style, because most trainers like Angie and I are, believe that a horse has their natural style. You can't really change that. If you try to change that a lot, then you can't get the best that horse is going to be. But it doesn't mean that you don't ride that horse the same with your hands. So, like, I have a method that I teach. I always do slide. That's the first thing. I try to teach blinker, brake, turn, just like driving in a car, because it's something that we all do. Okay, so just like driving a car, if you get to the turn and you turn the wheel, then you dukes a hazard, 2 wheels in the air. It's too late. And so that's why blinker, brake, and then turn. Okay, so blinker to me is tipping a horse's head going to the barrel. A horse doesn't see the same way that we do. You know, our eyes are in front of us, and a horse's eyes are on the side. And so that's why no matter, if you have a rollback style horse, or you have a turn style horse, or 4-wheel drive, or whatever, a horse still, to get peripheral vision, to be able to judge the distance between, where they are in the barrel, has to be able to see the barrel with both eyes. Okay, for a horse to do that, because their eyes are on the side, they have to turn their head to the barrel. So, blinker to me is sliding your hand down the rein and getting that horse to tip their head, lifting your thumb up, putting some inside rein pressure. So that's the first thing I teach, is slide your hand down the rein and lift your thumb up, because that makes your inside rein tight. That tips your horse to the barrel, it lets them see it. It's the, hey, here comes the barrel, are you ready? And then I teach brake, which is to go to the horn. Because all horses naturally, when you sit down and you put seat pressure in, slow down. That's what we teach them from the get-go. So naturally, that's where your rate comes from. So blinker, slide your hand down, lift your thumb up, brake, go to the horn, and turn is the toughest part. And that's where a lot of it varies between trainers and individuals. I rotate my hand down and turn this way, because I want only inside rein pressure. If you stay in the middle of your reins, like if you don't slide your hand down and you turn that way, then you actually pull the outside rein. So you get outside rein pressure and you turn a horse's head away from the barrel instead of to the barrel. And that goes back to the vision thing. They have to be able to see the barrel with both eyes. they have to turn their head to the inside. So that's why it's really important to slide your hand down. But I move my hand this way, like around the barrel, almost like you're stirring soup. And that's how I keep a horse's forward momentum. The most common thing that I see when I teach a lot of clinics is the old school style of putting the money in your pocket or turning and looking. I think those are the two biggest hand placement mistakes that people make. And the reason that is because if you pull straight back and put the money in your pocket, what are you telling your horse? We have some prizes. Okay, we have prizes. So if you do this behind the barrel and you put the money in your pocket, what are you telling your horse? The stop. Yay, winner.
What do you win?
Okay, so we all know that we want to make the fastest turn that we can.
There you go.
Yay!
It's cold at home.
So we all want to make the fastest turn. We don't want to stop behind the barrel. We don't want to tell our horse to slow down. That's why I always try to think about sliding my hand out and moving my hand out and around, because then you're guiding their nose through the turn. You continue to let that horse carry the momentum, move fast, and that's fast turns is what makes the best barrel horses. I mean, the best horse I ever had was not the fastest horse I've ever been on. You?
I agree. Yeah.
They're the fastest turner. They're the most efficient. They lead the barrel. Difference between a 1D and a 2D horse is how fast a horse leaves the barrel. You know, so guiding them through the turn and guiding their nose and not inhibiting them and slowing them down the backside of the turn is what you can do as a rider to help your horse shave time off, basically. And so, you know, leading their nose and moving your hand out and around the barrel is really probably the most important movement I think you can make as a barrel racer.
So you keep your hand up forward.
I always keep bending my elbow. And of course, like I said, I try to always ride all my horses the same. And how much pressure you put on the reins forward and back is how much pressure you apply. You know, if you have a super light horse that's 10 years old and automatic and doesn't take a lot of guiding on the backside, doesn't necessarily mean that you move your hand in a different way. It just means that less pressure. So then you'll get straighter with your elbow. You know, on a colt that needs a lot more help, you're gonna bend your elbow and come this way. But it's always more this way, kind of back to your hip. Because also if you get right here and you come to your pocket, you limit yourself. Once you get there, you can't go anywhere else.
So how do you keep one soft if you don't use your legs? I have a mare that if I use my leg as I'm going in, she will get strong on the backside of a turn. She will just, give in her rib cage if I use my leg. But if I don't, she gets strong on the backside of a turn. So when you talk about using your hand,
that's a fundamental issue. That has nothing to do with the pattern. And it's probably because whoever broke her or because you ride with your legs and cue at home all the time. I don't wear spurs. I mean, on any horse I own. That's my own personal thing, but it's because I ride tennis shoes at home.
I use like a bumper spur. I mean, I
ride tennis shoes
but
at
we
home.
ride with
Well, I broke my pelvis a long time ago, and boots absolutely killed my pelvis, and they hurt my back. So I ride tennis shoes at home. And so the difference for me is between the tennis shoe and the boot is like the difference between not riding a spur at home and riding a spur. So one of the biggest things is take your spurs off. That's how you will soften up a horse. Just like if you want to soften them in the mouth, you back down on your bridle and you make them come to that bridle. So it may be a lot of hard work and it may not be fun, but you do fundamental drills and lots of slow work of not using your feet so it starts at home. You know, if you can do it and you can replicate it and you're not having trouble in a run, then run with your feet. I mean, there's exceptions to every rule. I just think it's hard to replicate. And there's a lot of human error in it, the right time, and it's a lot easier to control your hands than it is your feet, just because of the balance issue.
Yeah, with her, we ended up slowing her rate in helped her. Went to an athletic clinic and used the slowing her rate going in helped a lot too, getting away from the feet versus she gets too strong too fast on the backside. But
so I mean,
broke her with her feet
my major deal is like if I'm on a horse at a clinic, like of mine, I don't ever touch a horse with my feet. That's just my deal. But if I do, it's like I ride with my hands and correct with my feet. So like if, let's say I pick a horse up and I want them to side pass and I feel like even they don't want to give to me or they're slow, then I kick and I kick hard. I mean, it's like a punishment if I touch them with my feet. And so, I mean, literally I can touch a horse like this with my foot and they pay attention to that. But that way, when I'm running, let's say I'm in too close, oh crap, I'm going to hit a barrel, it's for the round win, you know, to win 100,000 at the fraternity or whatever, and I bump a horse with my foot, I get that 2 inches really easy, whereas a lot of people have to put a foot on them and squeeze, whereas I can just bump and not affect my balance. So, I mean, that's just something that I've developed over the years just to try to help my riding and replicating the same. You know, I mean, because the goal is, you know, the better we ride, the better the horse does. So it's all about trying to do things from muscle memory that are easy that you don't have to think about when you run. You have to say. I'm a talker.
That's good. With what, you know, just listening to Jackie, and we've known each other a long time, and we've watched each other compete for a long time. So we both do have a lot of things in common that we do ride and try to get along and, you know, try to train our horses the same way. But there are a few things that are different. And some of the things that I do are a little bit different than what she does. Not saying one's right or, you know, the other. But
and we all ride from each other and
yeah,
brainstorm and learn something. I've learned something from every person I've ever rode with.
That's the best thing I think you can have
Absolutely.
as a barrel racer, and a winner is trying to watch other competitors that are winners and pick a few things from each person that fit you and fit your horse. And both of us have rode a lot of horses during the years too, and that's something that for me in my training program, each horse is different. There's not one certain thing that you have to do, you know, the same. You know, I mean, there are a lot of things that I try to keep the same, and a lot of things that I have to do different to ride that certain horse. So, like with her, with not wearing spurs, for instance, me, I teach a lot at my clinics to have control of your feet. Not saying that I ride with my feet. I do believe you control a horse better with your hands. And I like to set up in a turn. And you know, my perfect run is for me to be setting up, setting square. I have what I call a control box, and that's where I want my hands. I want my hands up here where I'm in a control box, where I'm sitting up, and I'm sitting where I can see the horse, I can feel each part movement, and I can be ahead of that horse before he makes that move. You know, I try to squeeze. I in a turn, you know, on the perfect horse. I like to set, and I like to bring one around too with my hand. And then sometimes there's not horses that, you know, are like that, so you have to make the exceptions. But as far as like the spur deal, like I tell everybody, if you don't have control of your feet and you don't know where your spurs are and you don't know how to use spurs, it's probably better not to use them. You can make a horse hate their job really quick by using spurs. For instance, I had a horse just a month, well, I've had her for 3 months now. She was ducking, running on the fence, hated her job. I got her from a client and she didn't know what to do with her. In 5 minutes of being around this mare, I could tell she hated life. Somebody had been on her and tried to cowboy her and tried to spur and tried to do this, and then, you know, the jockey, she's the greatest lady in the world. She never knew what she was doing, but she wasn't in control of her feet and in control of her spurs. So a lot of people put spurs on, and I believe that I believe that some people think that if you have spurs on, then you're a better rider. Yeah, you look the part.
They jing when you walk.
Yeah,
much better.
Or that you can make a horse go faster with spurs.
Yeah.
That's not
and
always
that's
the
biggest
case.
misconception ever with spurs. Like, with me, like, I try not to use my spurs, but I want my horse to know when I do use them. I don't want him to be afraid of them, but I want him to move and give me that little extra 2 inches or that little here and there, you know, wherever we need to be.
And one thing about that is I'm 6 inches shorter than her.
Exactly.
My legs are a lot harder, so I have to be really careful with my spurs because I'm so high on a horse's ribs.
It's easier for me to be effective with my spurs versus her.
Right.
Shorter legs, they're higher on the ribs. I can get up underneath one.
I can cut one easy with round taped spurs because my legs are so short. And so that's something that a lot of people don't think of. They just think, oh my God, Angie's a professional barrel racer and she's made NFR and she's got spurs on. I mean, you have to.
What kind are they?
How sharp are they?
Let me buy those.
I mean, the horse I made the NFR on, I wore 1 spur on.
Yeah.
I mean, just funny things. And that was what worked for him. I mean, like she said, every horse is different, but.
And I ride some without spurs too, but most of the time I try to ride. I do ride with spurs, but I do ride for a lot of slow work. And when I touch them, like I said, I want them to be afraid. I want them to be effective. So, also, like my hands, back to the control box. I set up in a turn. I try to keep my hands up. I feel like, and this may be where Jackie is different than me too. You know, when I'm going into a turn, I want to see it. I want to be looking, and I really go to a point on my horses. Like, I will literally look at the dirt and find my point where I need to cue my horse. So I try to stay up and keep my hands, you know. Some horses want to drop the shoulder, some want to be up rounded, some want to run around the turn, some want to get in on the turn. So many different ways. So I believe that setting up and, you know, staying, and not saying that you haven't seen me do this a few times, because we all do, you know, those certain situations. But I
in a perfect world.
Yeah, exactly. In a perfect world. But I believe setting up and staying in your control box, being able to see your surroundings, being able to use your legs, keeping your feet, your butt down, up, and, you know, straight up on your horse. This is more my sit and slow down. Like she said, when you apply pressure in your pockets, the horse wants to get down, and that's what I want him to do. I'm kind of the same as her. I kind of try to do a meltdown stage. Same
and when I
break, turn.
And when I train, like when I'm starting a horse, I don't know how you do it, but like I do speed transitions. That's how I teach rate. And a lot of people want to like run their horse up and slam them in the ground and think that's how you teach rate. I mean, that's how maybe you've seen someone tune a horse that's 12 years old that ran to the fence the last time, but that's not how you actually teach rate. You know, I teach when I'm training, let's say I'm going to trot the pattern. I trot up to a point, and that point where I think they need a rate, which is usually about a horse length, that's how I teach them to melt to
a breakdown point.
I sit down, and then I expect them to break to a walk, and they walk through the turn as my leg comes by the barrel, and I kind of step forward, then I expect them to go back up to a trot. And, you know, then you teach rate naturally versus the from a cue versus the natural thing that you're going to do is sit for a turn. So it comes from your pockets. Lots of people don't realize that.
Same as her, I do the same thing. I do a lot of speed transition drills at home, from when they're first being broke to my open horses. I call it the 4-barrel drill, and I can do like a speed transition. that. I can show you on the board too. Just a little drill at home that you're not working the barrels, but if you're having trouble, like you know, like you said, slowing one down and getting the rate that you need, getting a horse collected. My drawing's not very good, but I'll put 4 barrels. If you have a big spot to do this, you don't have to do 4 barrels, but to teach the transition and speed, like I will, if you have, like I said, big enough place to let your horse kind of trot out there or lope out there, wherever you're at in your training program, as far as teaching this horse. I'm not saying go do this on the first time you ride, but like I'll start a horse. Doesn't really even matter what barrel, but sometimes I'll lope on a more seasoned horse. I'll lope up here. I'll break it down to here. Then I'll trot, break it down, walk, you know, whatever. Then I'll speed up, break it down, you know, another breakdown point. Just a drill, and I'll do this, you know, and I'll go to the next one, speed up, you know, break it down, go around. Just that kind of a deal to where your horse is learning. And what you need to concentrate on this sort of a drill is your body position, your hand position, and I believe consistency with the horse and their mouth, the way you step, the way you do everything. Horses learn by repetition. Absolutely. And that is a very important thing. Sometimes you'll see trainers or jockeys that they train a certain way, but they go run a different way. Then you'll see trainers that go out there and they'll get to the barrel race and they're like, damn, my horse, you know, ran by the barrels. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to jerk him to the ground. And not saying every now and then you don't need to get your horse's attention, because you will see me. I will go out there if a horse needs his brakes tuned up a little bit or tightened. I will go out there and I'll be like, hey, buddy, get off me. You know, a lot of that goes back to being broke well. Just their mouth being, like you said, soft. I like a soft, supple horse too, and the mouth, ribs, everywhere, their whole body, even their butt. I want it to where I can move it around. So
you have to be able to move all the pieces, and all of them different. Front end, you need to be able to move the rib cage and the hind end easily. Yes, easily.
There's so much that goes in.
And this
training,
and the same thing about consistency and repetition. You have to remember that don't get too complicated with what you do either. You can't talk reason to a horse. So if it's going to take you 5 minutes to explain to me what you're doing, like this is a very simple exercise that she's talking about, and like she said, it's something where you can work on what you are going to do exactly in a run. And I try to practice exactly like I'm going to run. I don't work a lot of big circles. That's one thing in my training that varies from a lot of people. I actually put my horse exactly where I want him to run. I think that helps them with foot placement as you go. I have a little bit easier time speeding my horses up and adding speed because they know where the foot placement is. Truth be told, if you watch a lot of really good horses in slow motion, they all do one thing, no matter what their style is, and they cross their front feet behind the barrel. They all cross their feet right here. If you're turning the barrel, they cross their feet right there. And that's one reason why I don't work bigger than I run, because even at a trot, they won't completely cross over, but they'll start learning the foot placement. So it's kind of like ballroom dancing. You have to practice exactly where you're going to put your feet. Same thing with the barrel horse. So just be careful about, you know, I mean, do I ever work big circles around the barrel? Sure. You know, I mean, like she said, do I ever slam a horse in the ground? Sure. We all do things, but consistently over time, even if I'm trying to fix a problem, I try to practice exactly the way I want to run. Because if you get too complex with it and you have to really explain it, you can't explain it to that horse. Horses learn through repetition. Horses learn through consistency. And also, riders learn muscle memory through consistency. And that's the biggest thing you'll find about your best top riders, especially with what we do. You know, I have 4 horses going to Oklahoma City next week. They're all at a different level. They all run a little bit different, but I am able to ride very consistently because I ride them the same every day. You know, I try to, you know, of course we all adjust to a mistake, but I try to ride every horse the same and the same way that I ride at home, and then I try to, you know, A plus B makes C. That's what you're always trying to do. 1 + 1 makes 2. You have to keep it very simple, because those are the things, you know, everyone talks about, you know, the magic magnet that sits over the end of the alley. You run through it, sucks your brain out. You totally black out during a run. That is very, very common. And so the way you get past that as a rider and be able to react to your horse is by muscle memory. Okay? So you have to remember that practice at home and what you do with your hands, you know, consistency, repetition. Make sure that you're practicing what you preach, meaning that you practice the exact same way you want to run, because if not, when the magnet sucks your brain out, you have nothing to fall back on. You're going to fall back on whatever you do.
Yes.
So practicing one way and running a different way is the biggest, probably the biggest problem that most barrel racers have, is they lack consistency even between the barrels. You do one thing at first, you do something different at the second, and something different at the third. How do you ever get the same response from your horse? So.
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I was going to ask, when they start to anticipate the turn, what drills do you use? And if they start to shut down on the backside, what do you use to keep a colt like moving? If it's not like wider circles.
Okay. On my training, on the backside, if I have a horse that's trying to like slow down on the backside of the turn and want to just come right back over, I will make a bigger, like, I use a drill that I call the 4 corners drill around a barrel, and I will go, say I'm coming up, I will go to this point, and I will push him with my legs, squeezing, hands forward, saying, I want you to move forward, keep going straight, and then I will, like Jackie was saying, good horses, they want to cross over. I teach them to get up, push their butt up under, and then come across. I use my outside leg and push them forward. I will go across to here, and then I will come, just keep pushing them. And right here on the back side is usually where they're wanting to stall out. Right here, is that kind of your question? Where they're wanting to just cut across. I will push them up and around, make them over-exaggerate that arc and keep moving forward. That's one of the biggest things in my training program is I want a horse moving forward always. My horses don't always make that pretty, real tight turn, but I want them always moving forward. That I believe that cuts the time. If you get a horse that wants to get right in on the barrel and they're shutting you down and they have that hesitation, that's a lot of time you're losing. They may not be, you know, if you got a horse, get them to here, and get out. That's what I think is your fastest turns if they're moving forward. I may not be, like I said, right on the barrel, but my horses will be moving forward around the turn, and that keeps a lot of problems from happening. You know, when you're a lot of people, I think, magnet too. Their horse starts to get like a magnet. They want to go to that barrel, and same with the person. You're looking at it, you want to go to it. So try to stay up and moving out and around it and fluid. That's kind of mine.
And I train a little bit rounder horse than she does.
Yes.
I mean, my horses are a little bit more bendy in the turn. So as opposed to where she does 4 points, I'll have a tendency that, let's say this is the perfect circle. If I have one that's really wanting to stall out here, I push them out just a little bit further and I'll load. Just basically, you know, like maybe this far on the outside of the tracks, not very far, because the closer you're in, you know, like a lot of people want to get really wide. They want to load 10 or 15 foot like this. Well, that's not challenging to a horse at all.
No,
if you get it a little bit, you know, just right outside of the tracks, like outside of the run tracks, that's really difficult for a horse. They really have to push up, you know, and I mean, if I have to, you know, hit a horse on the butt to keep them moving forward, or like I said, that's where I correct with my feet. I'll tear one up with my feet and squeeze them up, and you know, And that's the deal. You can vary your speed. You know, once you get them loping in a nice round, and that's the biggest thing about correcting that problem is a lot of people don't realize it needs to be a perfect circle. When you're, you know, on that backside, don't let them get close here and then shoot out on this side. And, you know, make sure it's not an egg. You know, they'll come this way and then this way. And, you know, make sure that's a circle. And just the same thing, pushing the butt up behind, you know, like I said, I train a little bit rounder than she does. And that's just the difference in our styles.
But it all goes back to hand position.
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
It all goes back to hand position.
Yeah.
And where you're at with your hands, squeezing them through, how you're asking them to go around the turn. Sometimes you'll get to the backside and be like,
yeah. Well, and that's the thing is a lot of times horses that stall out on the backside comes from a habit of
someone
either being down here, you know, getting down here, or, and I mentioned this a while ago, the turn and look, you know, I mean, that was something from our childhood, you know, I mean, but it was a very popular, because they could teach children to look at the next barrel and they would naturally finish a horse. Well, then when you got big enough to like have any power behind it, you know, then all of a sudden you're rotating your hips, and that will make a horse come on top of the barrel right here and cut the back side of the pocket, or come right on top of it and drag it over. You know, just like she said, staying really square with your hips. I ride a lot more forward than Angie does. That's just my style. I mean, I sit in the turn still, but I do ride a lot, you know, like as my leg comes by the barrel, I really push a horse forward, moving that way. But the key to all of that, no matter what your style is if you're forward, if you're really sitting down, is that your hips are square and your shoulders are square. This forward and back is just a pressure thing, you know.
And I believe if you get, for me, when you get too far forward, you have no control. I mean, you can't do this, you know. So setting up in your turn, keeping your hands up, being able to see what's happening. And your control box, that's where you have your control.
And that's totally, and you have to also remember that your center of gravity when you ride is your belly button. Most people don't realize that. So somebody asked me about hand placement. If you keep your hands, control box, like she's saying, at your belly button, elbows bent right near you, that's where you have the most control. If you think about a lever system, if you get your arms way too far out, you don't have a lot of control. If you get up against your body,
so
no
control.
control.
How much space when you're holding your reins like this?
Comfortable.
This.
Comfortable. What's comfortable for you?
And the horse.
And the thing is it's the same thing about reins. I don't believe that any two people ride the same length reins.
No.
I like short reins.
Amen.
Because
That's my biggest
because I lean forward really bad. But honestly, probably if you put Angie and I, if you took a picture of the second barrel, I lean really far forward between the barrels because I have a racehorse background.
Yeah.
I grew up galloping racehorses. That's how you made them go forward. But when I get to a turn, I'm sitting on my pockets and my shoulders are square. I'm not forward in a turn where, just like she said, if you're like this in a turn, you have no control. It's a lever system. There's nowhere for you to move your hands. The same thing is if you get your reins too long and you're back here, there's nothing you can do.
So at what speed do you not have two hands going around the barrels? At what point do you start in your training? At what point do you start dropping?
There's some people that train one-handed from the day they're a 3-year-old. Yeah. There's some people that can do that.
It also depends on the horse.
It really does.
It does. You know, and I mean, like I know with my 3-year-olds, there's at some point where they start to speed up behind the barrel and they start to speed up a little too. And I'll have been riding them, you know, loping them through and going to one hand, and then all of a sudden I have to start picking it back up just because they need a correction right there or to stay on top of it. But
when you said that they need to look at the barrel going into the barrel, where are you talking about that they need to be looking at? When do you get the horse's head? When do you go to your blinker?
I do it about approximately 1 horse length from the barrel.
Yeah, because I've got one that as soon as you go to drop 2 hands, she wants to drop into the barrel. I have to keep her up
and that was
square.
another thing that I was going to mention that you kind of asked is moving into the turn. If I have a horse that moves into my hand, which is to me the cardinal sin of barrel racing, if a horse moves into your hand, meaning if you, no matter what you do, if you pull back, if you lift, however you ride, if you make a move to the barrel and your horse moves into your hand, it is the worst thing that can happen. Because it's the hardest thing to control, therefore after. It affects everything. And so if I have a horse that, you know, like I get to the rate point, like you're saying, because the hardest horse in the world to ride is one that you have to push by the barrel. Ask her how hard Mulberry was to ride past the barrel, you know, because she moved into your hand. I mean, great horse.
She wanted to lean.
Yeah,
she wanted to drop her
She
shoulder.
leaned, you know, I mean, that's just her style. But, you know, I'll come up here and where I get to the rate point, it's when I make the speed transition, I'll counter arc them right here. And I'll make a counter arc, lifting their shoulder. So not just turning away from the barrel, but making sure they pick their shoulder up, tip their head in, and move. And I'll do a counter arc all the way right here, and then I'll turn the barrel. But I think that mostly horses that move into your hand is also a fundamental issue. So if your horse, as soon as you drop the outside rein, moves in, you need to do a lot of work freeing up their shoulders. We talked a little bit earlier about being able to control every part. Horses that move into your hand usually need to free up their shoulders. So working on shoulder control at home, counter arcing, and stuff like that is the best way to try to free up a horse.
There's a drill I do to, like, for her, like she's saying about the shoulder and moving forward. A lot of us, I mean, it's hard to ride two-handed all the way up into the turn. It's hard. Some horses, you have to do it. And
well, because your balance comes from sitting down. So if you're up there and they're starting to turn, then centrifugal force gets you in the, sucks you down in the turn.
A lot.
Yeah.
On some of my colts, even my rodeo horses, whatever, I have a drill that I do at home. I just call it a straight line drill, where I can drop my outside hand in this straight line, and I want them to stay. If I drop that outside line, I'm looking at a point straight ahead of me. I'll pick a post on the arena fence, and I will make that horse go straight with just me using my one hand. I will keep rib control over here, but I also want to keep my outside shoulder control. I want that horse's body going down that straight line. I want every part of his body to go down that. I want a nose tip just a little bit, and I want the butt still following that pole going across that line. I want him to stay right on that, but I don't want him to move or move into that inside or whatever until I say turn.
Well, and that's the key. If you just watch her hand, if you just watch her hand, do it again. Like this, and then she said turn, and she went like that. That's the biggest deal. Is it may be tipping a horse's nose is about getting on the inside rein. You shouldn't have to do anything except this right here.
Just stick her hand up, and that horse should.
And like I said, if you slide your hand just a little bit down the rein, and she had her hand up just like this, I always say give God the thumbs up. Let him help you through the turn, okay? But if you tip, because when you turn your hand up, you get inside rein tension. Not pulling on the inside rein, just tight inside rein. A horse should give you their nose. But they should continue to go straight. Just like she's saying. I mean, it's the same thing. I can tip a horse's nose, and they should be able to walk in a straight line. A lot of barrel racers don't have that control. Turn is like this. That's the difference. So it may be that you just have a little bit of confusement in your commands.
So holding them is just tipping their nose.
Yes.
They shouldn't turn.
Yeah, that's
they
the
should be able to
blinker.
run straight.
Yes.
Go at any speed,
Yes.
straight down the fence tip.
Yes.
And
carry
controlling
yourself.
all their body parts.
Yes.
Right.
Because you don't want to put your hand up here and your horse's butt go like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You want them to stay
Or
straight,
move into your
moving
hand.
forward, and then turn when you ask.
It should
Or if
look
you want
just
them to
like
go the other way.
this. It
Pick
should
up.
look just like this. All you're asking them to do is tip their head. Everything else continues to move forward. All they're doing is looking at the barrel. That's your blinker.
What I will do is I will ride a straight line with just like I'm picking a point or picking a barrel, just like this 4 corners. You can do it on your 3 barrels drill.
Right.
But pick your point, go to it, and ride them. Like if you're gonna ride in a run two-handed, stay two-handed, squeezing, pushing with my, I'm squeezing with my legs, pushing with my butt. I'm staying up in there, and I say, I want you to set up for the turn. So I drop my outside rein, but I haven't asked you to turn yet. So I keep walking forward. As long as I want to keep my hand right there, that horse should stay right there, and his body should stay. You've got your line right here, and I call it stay between my lines. This is a line, and this is a line. I draw that line, I want you to stay between it. Don't get your butt out here. Don't get your shoulder in here. Stay straight, stay straight, stay straight. That's a big drill that I did on Mulberry. I don't know, the gray horse that I rode out here. That's a real. She was known as a barrel hitter.
She was a barrel
Best
crasher.
horse I've ever rode.
She's awesome.
She was
But
awesome.
a lot of people don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
we for charity. She started to the right
Yeah,
and she could not get around barrels.
Yeah.
And you switched her to the left, right?
yeah.
So-
It's just easy to ride. That's for sure.
Yeah, the year in 2010, I had her for months, and I felt like I could have went 10 more rounds on her out here and not hit a barrel. But in 2011, I got her within a month, and we were a little rusty on our drills, and you could see I would hold her there, and she would just push. But on a horse like that, I believe if you can get their nose, and you can get that rib, and get their shoulder control of all that body part, that horse is never able to just completely go into you. If they're moving forward and they're listening to you and your legs and you're pushing them forward and you have that shoulder, nose, ribs, they can't get into that drop as bad as, I'm not saying they can't, because they can maneuver as going that fast, but it is a lot.
But in the same thing that she's saying is keep staying between the lines is also correcting it.
Yes.
So if you give it, if you ask them to give you their head and move forward, and they move into you, that's when you would counter arc. And that's when I said I correct with my feet. If a horse moves into my hand, spurs or not, teddy shoes, I will tear a horse up with my inside foot without being on my hand. Knowing that is incorrect. And a lot of people, jerk or something like that. I'm not a jerker, I'm not a whipper, but I will tear a horse up with my feet. Because just like anybody, if you touch someone in the ribs, that's one of the most tender places on you. So, you don't have to go to a big effort to
hurt
punish,
one,
to punish,
make 'em think.
to let them know that that's incorrect by, that's why I really correct with my feet. And it's one of the reasons why I like I said, I don't wear spurs, because if I correct, so if that horse, if you're doing that and she moves into your hand, I mean, it doesn't matter if you go 1 step forward, 2 steps forward, or 10 steps forward. Every time she moves into your hand, correct her. Make a counter arc, tear her up with your foot, and do that over and over. Same thing if a horse pushes their rear out, then I tear them up with the outside leg kind of further back, and that's what we're talking about, controlling all the pieces. Head, shoulders, but it's not just about putting your hand up and getting even your hand in the right place, because if you're having a communication issue, which is probably what you're having between you and her, you're trying to adjust your riding too much to the horse. There isn't, just like she's talking about with Mulberry, there has to be a line where you say, this is too hard for me to ride. It's too hard for me to replicate in a run. You have to come to me. And I think that's, that staying between the lines, like she said, is a great drill, but you have to remember that, even if she toes the line, you stand her back up. If she toes the line, you stand her back up, so that you start to get some clear communication, consistency, repetition, making sure that you do A, you get B. You do A, you get B.
Now, taking her up into the turn when she wants to, if you're taking her up in there, be better to go back to the squares so she's not dropping the shoulder, wanting to come right to, she wants to turn right at the backside of the turns. She makes really nice runs. I mean, she either goes out and,
where are you saying she's wanting to turn? Like,
anytime you
if
drop
you're
a
coming
ring.
into this, and you drop your outside hand right here, she wants to turn.
yeah, you have to go, you have to stay 2 hands almost to the backside. Because as soon as you drop or go to the horn, she wants to just, she thinks dropping your rein is telling her to
It's
turn.
saying turn.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mainly go back riding one hand up in there.
if you can't ride all the way into the turn two-handed
So
and
if
stay
you ride
up,
one,
I can, it just makes it difficult.
If
It's
you-
hard because
so
I'm riding
if
3
you-
different horses and I have
so
one
if you
that's-
ride one-handed, she doesn't do it.
No, I pretty much ride her 2-hand all the way up in there because if you don't, as soon as you drop, she wants to go right. She wants to turn wherever you drop,
yes.
and she's really, really aggressive. I mean, she's fast and she's strong, so she comes in hard.
Yeah. I mean, for me, if you sent her to me, and just from hearing what you said, I would probably get her backed off the bit
Absolutely.
for one, because you're saying she's strong
Aggressive.
and aggressive. That means
She
she's
wants to
pushing
go.
on you.
And I mean,
she's,
I've been working on trying to get her off the bit last
And
time.
honestly, most of the best horses I've ever rode are really aggressive in the arena.
Oh, she's
But
she's cool.
they should be
back off.
a feather in the back.
Yeah, I've been trying to free her up. I went and changed bits and I've been freeing her up. She either goes out and wins it or she gets barrel. She doesn't, I mean, there's like no in between. She gives you 110% every single time. Just really, really aggressive. But she wants to just, she's so whoopy at the back of the barrel, it's hard to stay with her.
Yeah.
And so, and I will tell you this, I know that a lot of people, when they have a really aggressive horse and one that's really super ratey and whatever, they have a tendency to not work them at home because they think if you work them at home,
You get
I'm going to
ratier.
make her ratier. But that is I think that is a huge misconception.
Work her more.
Because I don't know if it's necessarily work her more. And it may not even be that you work solely on the pattern, but you have to go back somewhere you have fouled up in your basics.
Make sure she's just really broke.
Yeah,
Super
really,
broke.
really, supple. You cannot overdo that. I mean,
That's a huge misconception
Yeah.
too,
Yes.
with a lot of people too,
Yeah.
is they think, oh, I've got a winner,
Yeah.
I don't need to work them.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying you need to go out and
Yeah.
drill them and
Yeah.
Yeah.
school them,
And,
but they need to know their basics.
but you know, if you get behind the alley and we've been rodeoing for 2 months or whatever, you'll see a lot of people with one barrel set up, and they'll maybe be like, "Hey, Angie, can I borrow your barrel?"
Yeah.
Sure,
Just
you know,
one barrel.
yeah, just one
That's all
barrel.
you need.
You know, I mean, maybe it's if she's really aggressive and she's really good, maybe you don't even school the whole pattern, and that's where a lot of 4-barrel drills come in. I don't do a lot of that because I mainly trade colts, so I do 3 barrels, 3 barrels. You know,
See, my deal is I train colts, and I think they should go wherever I want to go
You can
and
do the
stay.
same with 3 barrels. Though.
Yeah,
all
you
right.
do it. However, I can put 8 barrels, and
Yeah.
if you go to my arena right now, there's probably 8 barrels set up.
Yeah.
I just have barrels everywhere, and I want my horse to go and frame up and get in position, and get off my hand, and go around that barrel correct. No matter if I want to go the 3rd barrel first, you should be listening to me. If I'm running down the Thomas and Mack and I say, Mulberry, we want to go the 3rd barrel first, then you better be between my lines and stay right there.
See, and I just have like just a different opinion. I do a lot of drills like this with cones. Whereas if I set barrels up, I want my horse looking for the barrel,
Yeah.
for the 3 barrels. That's just, I mean, it's a difference of opinion. It's not that I don't do this right here. I just do it with cones rather than barrels, And that's just, everybody does things a little bit different. That's
Right.
just easier for me.
Just,
I don't-
there's so many drills
Right.
and so many things you can do. And a
But
lot
like
of
I
it's
said,
in front of the
supple.
horse.
Supple is what you're looking for. That's what all of these things do. Lighter in the mouth, moving forward. And like I said, maybe you just haven't done the right fundamental exercises and showed her that move, that when you drop, if you loped down or you took off trotting down a fence and you had 2 hands and you just dropped to 1 hand, does she move?
That's great, yeah.
Actually tune and work on the thing that's hurting you in a run, which is she has learned that a cue to turn is dropping the outside rein. Troy, who trained Mulberry, I've rode after him a little bit. That's actually how he trains. When he drops the outside rein, but he's Gumby.
Yeah.
Seriously. I mean, you look at pictures of him and he's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like,
Yoga. He just
I love you, but I cannot do that.
Yeah.
I cannot do that in the turn, so I don't train that way, you know. And
What do you do with the colt? You know, you do a lot of slow work, but you obviously they have to learn. Some colts need to be taught to run, and some colts need to be taught to be slowed down. So where they put their feet and fast, you're trying to determine, well, is this a colt that I need to put more weight in, or that I need to, you know, drive past a barrel? So do you do the same drills fast?
I
And
do.
just
I'm a
position,
firm
finding-
believer that horses are not born to, they don't know how to run. And yes, they run in the pasture and they know how to run. That has nothing to do with it. Because from the first time we put a bit on them, what do we teach them? To be behind the bit. Supple behind the bit. I mean, I'll tell you, my good fraternity horse last year, King, has never breezed, because that horse, when you go like that, like rocket boosters shoot out from behind him, he's just that kind, so he's never breezed, but he is, I think, a rare exception. But I mean, I breeze a lot of my horses. I come from a racehorse background. I have a racetrack at my house. You know, I think a lot of them have to be taught that when I ask to go fast, that they go. But I personally don't ever breeze something almost until they're like ready to compete and run. And I don't run horses. This is my own opinion. A lot of people think, oh, my horse is loping the barrels slow. Maybe I might catch a check in the 5D. I don't enter that way. I mean, I really feel like if my horse can't run a pattern, I don't enter them. You know,
So
and
if
some
you
of
don't
that
have a
comes
track,
from,
if you don't have a, I don't have a racetrack. So
you just need a safe place.
just
that's-
somewhere fast. I mean, what I do is do this stuff but fast. So I don't know if that's what you do.
I don't, because I personally believe that a horse actually, you need at least 200 yards to actually open them up and get going fast enough to teach an actual run, if you're actually teaching a horse to run. You can do speed transitions at a fast pace just around an arena, you know, leaning forward and breezing down the side of the arena. And when you sit to make the turn, get them to collect and come back to you. That's a way to teach a horse to run too, if you don't have a, you know, a safe place to whatever. But, you know, of course, like I said, King has never breezed and maybe never will, because I'm a little bit afraid of his speed. I can only, you know, however fast he can go, I can barely sit his turns the way it is. But, you know, like I said, I feel like he's more the rare exception, because like I said, most horses are taught to be behind the bridle all the time. From the time we break them, you know, they're taught control, you know, and a lot of them, you know, like my colts that are running for the first time at the juvenile next week, I have 2 of them entered. They've both been breezed, and you know, it was within the last couple weeks, because they're entered tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm going to a jackpot tomorrow, and so, you know, now it's time for. But I also think that you can breeze too early if you don't have fundamentals totally correct. You can confuse them. So my horses are solid as a rock on the pattern, and now all of a sudden I'm going to teach them that when I do lean forward and I smooch and I ask you to move forward, all of a sudden those feet need to go faster, you know. So that's when I do it. But, you know, like I said, you can overdo any of that. You can overdo rate, you can overdo speed, you know, you can, one of the only things I think you can't overdo is suppleness.
Yeah. It's all just trying to keep it simple, trying to be consistent, trying to do the same thing, repetition, having control of your body parts, and you knowing what that horse needs. Like, you're smarter than the horse, so if it needs some rate, then work on your rate. If it needs to be breezed or whatever, work on the breezing, but don't do too much of any of it, really. Take a piece and, you know, it just, you gotta work on different things. There's not probably, I mean, there's, every horse I have is, they're gonna learn to do each part of it and then try to put it all together.
And at a different speed. I have lots of people especially now that there's a juvenile and there's slot races that pay $100,000, and a lot of people want to know, what's your schedule for your slot horse?
Yeah.
You know, where is he running right now? I mean, I can tell you.
He wins at my arena all day long.
Yeah. But I mean, like, as far as they'll text me in June and say, what is your horse doing? I mean, I can tell you, I won second in the slot race at Oklahoma City on King. And I mean, I got beat by this much. And he was not broke until February 28th of his 3-year-old year, and he never went around a barrel till May. Freak of nature.
Yeah.
But I knew he's also very different. Like I said, he was always very sensitive and rocket. You could tell he was going to be that kind of horse, and a little bit went a long way with him, and he came. I ran his mother, so I knew, you know. But you know, there's some that have their horses running as 2-year-olds, and some horses do well that way. Some of it is knowing every horse does not fit a mold. You know, even in my training program, you know. I mean, one of the very best horses there are came from a very good trainer. Martha came through Dina's program, and she didn't even hardly run her as a fraternity horse because she did not think that she was ready, and she did not mature, and then look what she won after that. You know, I mean, some of them fit a fraternity mold, some of them fit a super stakes mold, some of them don't. Some of them make great rodeo horses, some of them make great 8-year-olds. You know, like I said, always adjusting your program to know what your horse needs is, you know, trying to stay one step ahead of the game, which is sometimes easier said than done. But
there was one other question, I mean, or one other topic I want to talk about before we're done, but does anybody have any questions so far?
Next, we're getting close to what, 2
Yeah,
o'clock. So.
time's probably. A lot of times people ask me, like, what do you do to try not to get nervous and try not to compete and ride a lot of different horses? That's kind of a big question at some of my clinics. And do I? Pray. Yeah, that's a good one too. But and I don't know about Jackie too, but riding a lot of different horses, riding in different situations. I don't care if you're at the slot race at Oklahoma City. You've got to be on your game. You've got to help your horse through the run. If you're fixing to run down the the tunnel at the Thomas and Mack, same thing. Riding different horses.
we all want to puke before we run.
We try not to.
Oh God.
But
It's learning to control that and make it a positive thing instead of a negative thing.
control your body. And what I do is I've had the most success with this. It calms my nerves. It gets me to get my horse to where he needs to be. Drinking. I should probably try that. But I go through my run on that horse in my mind, I don't know, sometimes at least 20 times before I run. It keeps my nerves down. It keeps me concentrating on what I need to do. Muscle memory thing, that comes into play. I will pick a dirt clod on the ground where I'm warming up or whatever, and I will make my horse I will pick a pattern somewhere. If it's small or if I can actually make it the size of the pattern, I'll go around my pattern like 20 times or however long I have to go through, and it keeps me, it's like I've made 10 runs before I've made my run. And you know how, a lot of people like to exhibition before they run. It's kind of the same thing. It kind of keeps your brain, it gets you focused, it blocks out all the other stuff, distractions, and before I'm getting ready to run at the NFR or whatever, and I'm on a different horse, I'm thinking, what do I have to do to make this horse, what do I have to do to make him work? Do what I need to do.
See it?
And you see it out there. You see your points, you see the barrel, you see coming down the alleyway. You mentally run in your mind as many times as you can, and I think that helps you to stay calm. It helps you make a run. It's like you've gone and practiced already. It calms you too. I mean, I feel like it does for me. That helps a lot of people, I think, and it helps me a lot in big situations, runs for big money, the slot races and things when you're on colts, and you know, they've run for their first time and you're like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen, but I need to do my part to help this horse through this run. And I go out there and I make my run 20 times before I go in. So,
and I think that's very good, and I do a lot of visualization too, but to the point to where when I run down the alley, I mean, that's kind of my favorite question to ask a lot of people is, what do you think about when you go down the alley? The best runs I've ever made in my life?
Don't know.
Nothing.
No,
the answer is nothing. Because I was as prepared as I could be. I had visualized it. I had done my homework. One thing I teach at my clinics is I call it a clean slate theory. Meaning that when you come out from a run, no matter if it was good or bad, and I tell people, dry erase boards are fabulous tools. $2 at Walmart, you can keep it in your trailer, in your truck. When you come out and it's fresh on your mind, you know, write down the things that went wrong. My horse moved in a little bit at the second, you know, she was really in my hands today, I really had to drive her past. No matter, even if you won the barrel race, if it was hard work, put it down. Those are your things that you're going to work on between the runs. You know, that's basically what happens at home. The best trainers and the best riders are always moving forward, whether it was a good run or a bad run. I mean, some of the best runs I've ever made, woo, I just squeaked by that second barrel. I need to go work on that at home, because you're going to only squeak by it a certain amount of times, because probably next time, not going to happen. You know, so that you know, and so that's your checklist at home. And I tell people, the best run you can make is when you get to the jackpot, if you're able to dry erase, you know, Tuesday I worked on my horse moving into my hand and she's really standing up good, you can erase that off your slate. That's one thing that you're going to go to the jackpot, not fret about. When you get really nervous is when you get somewhere and you're unprepared. Honestly, you know, gosh, my horse is not ready for this slot race and I've paid a $5,000 entry fee, or, you know.
So do you feel more aggressive or more relaxed when you come in? Are you more like up on the muscle, like you're ready?
Me? Like when I'm
you
gone
personally?
through it, I feel more relaxed.
You feel more, you're more,
I feel more relaxed.
Like
I'm
relaxed.
focused.
so you're not aggressive and.
Well, I mean, where I need to be aggressive, that's what I've prepared for it. When I mean, my brain is going, okay, I'm walking down the alley. This is how I want my horse to start off. You know, this is where I want to start. I mean, it's breaking it down to, like, ride them through your run out there, and you're prepared.
But I think what she means is she's mentally relaxed.
Yeah, mentally.
When I start my run, I want to be relaxed and like, I got this.
Yeah.
And I mean, basically any run is like give it a roll. I
Your
mean,
horse
see what you got.
you.
You should be as prepared as you can be in your training and at home to roll the dice and see what happens. That's what your dry erase board is for. If you've prepared at home and give it a go, be relaxed, be confident, give it the best shot you got, and if it didn't work and you had to put the same things down on the board, then you know you need to have to work harder at them at home. Or, you know, we need to make a change, or we need to do something different, or I need to ask a friend to help me, or whatever it is. And that's what she means about, I mean, visualization is great, but all of those things, mental preparation is all about when they call your name, you should say, you bet, watch this. Because the best runs I've ever made were the ones that I went in confident, like, you watch this, I'm fixing to take your money. I mean, seriously. You know,
But,
if you
know,
get
horses
there
that are
and
nervous,
yes.
like for instance, the horse I ride now, he's a nervous, very nervous horse. And if I was nervous and I was a little over aggressive, he can feel that. I want him calm as he can be, because that's when he goes and makes his best run. Is when he's calm, I'm relaxed, he's relaxed, and he just fluid, just is, I mean, it's like he's on rails, you know. But if he gets nervous and jacked up, then he's, you know, he's just like, ah, you know. But, and if I was to get nervous too, it'd be a train wreck, because then I'm like, ah, and he's the same way. And so that's why I try to prepare. I mean, it's just like preparation, just being ready for what you're about to do, being ready for what horse. If I have a horse and I need to spank on the butt to wake up, then that's what I'm going to do. But if I have one that's a little bit insecure, then I'm going to stay calm and I'm going to help him through that run. I'm going to help my horse that needs a spanking. I'm going to wake her up and say, let's go, girl, come on. You know.
Well, I mean, I have a Derby horse that, like you're saying, maybe you need to be aggressive, like riding, like from the South 40, yeah. It doesn't matter. It's still, I mean, that's all preparation. I may, like she's saying, start that horse further back, and I may be riding 9,000 from this step 1. It still doesn't mean that I'm still relaxed in my mind when they call my name, and that's what she's saying. If you get too aggressive, you have a tendency to make your horse too aggressive, you know, or you get too tense. That horse gets tense, you know. I mean,
you don't want to make it a big deal.
Yeah.
You want it to be easy. You want it to.
I mean, it shouldn't matter if you have to ride that horse as aggressive, whip from the South 40, or, you know, King is very different for me. I've never had a horse that you got to like ease up to the alley and go, oh, there's a barrel, there we can go. Yeah. Oh no.
I have that one too. I just started.
No, not to the. I mean, after I turn the first barrel, like yeah. But you know, like I ease up there and then just let him go, and it's like whatever speed he wants to go, that's the one we go. But it doesn't matter. I mean, I have 2 that are polar opposites. My mental frame of mind is never different because I'm totally prepared, but I'm relaxed until it's go time, right then.
When they're that fast and have that much motor and you're starting them, is it harder to keep them where you get them more on their back end instead of their front end when they get to the turn? When they're just...
I don't think so.
No?
I think if you do your homework and the horse is broke...
And that's totally a foundation thing too.
And there's going to be times, don't think this is a big deal too, like running a colt or whatever. You go make that fast run and you got to come home and go slow 15,000 times before you go make another fast run and bring everything back.
And my super duper fast one is one of the most rating ones I've ever run. I mean, he doesn't go by barrels, but I mean I know to control his speed in the first and rowl out, you know, the rest of the way. But I mean, I don't have trouble with him running by. I mean, if anything, I drag barrels over a little bit. I mean, that's his flaw, but it's all in training.
Any last quick questions? I know. She's got to catch a flight. She flew in just for this today. So, awesome. And of course, just to have Angie here is just such a cool thing because we've had kind of a journey together with this whole operation in here. So it's really cool. So I'd like to give a huge round of applause for both of them.
Thank you for having us.
Dang, you guys are good. Wow.
Thank you for letting us be a part of this journey. I walked in yesterday and saw it, and we were here, what, in August or something?
Yeah.
September. Yep. And it was just bare nothing, just a room. And to turn it into this. Kudos to this.
Thanks for being here, being a part of it, and
tell your friends so that next year all the seats are full.
Yeah, fill it up because this is, I mean, this is really awesome for them to do this. This is amazing. So we do have the best team on the Tuff team. So we're going to move everybody and we're going to do signings inside over by the fitting rooms on the backside.